So this brings us to the concept of old PASSIO versus new PASSIO. For people that know about or know my old work versus what I transitioned my work to over the last several years. See, most people love old PASSIO. Many people loved my earliest work because it discussed the world control system, mind manipulation techniques, occult symbolism, etc., so forth and so on, as I've already said. Such things largely place focus on external factors. You're looking at something outside of yourself that's operating in the world. And people were much more willing to accept such information because it did not focus intensely enough on the personal responsibility to change one's own thoughts and behavior, or the individual's responsibility to get involved personally in the war for human freedom. My earliest work didn't focus as intensely upon that. That's why people say, I hear it all the time, all over social media, all over the internet. You don't want to listen to his later stuff. He's yelling at people. He's angry. He's nasty. He's cursing. He's saying mean things. That's because look at what happened in the world, folks. You want to stay focused on external factors. You don't want to change your own thoughts and behaviors. Look at what just happened. Look at the whole world was shut down as just an example of what the real controllers and rulers of this whole domain can do. They just came out in the open and said, we're going to shut the whole damn world down at our discretion. And they did it like that. They perpetrated a fucking hoax, and they shut the entire world down, destroyed people's lives, destroyed people's business, created the largest wealth transfer to the wealthiest people in the world from the poorest people in the world, and people stayed there and took it up the rear end. And I'm supposed to just be like, oh, well, you know, people didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to change. No, I'm going to get... The velvet glove came off and the iron gauntlet went on. And I'm going to punch down on people because, once again, I've made these changes to myself. I'm not the issue or problem. So everybody goes, oh, go listen to the old stuff. That means you don't understand my work at all. Zero. Not one iota. Not one tiny little itsy bitsy bit. You don't understand my work. And it's sad. Because at this point in the game when I was presenting, I was wearing a mask. I wasn't who I really am. I wasn't letting my real personality show through. I'm presenting external stuff so that people gravitate to my work. And that's kind of disingenuous, quite frankly. And I dropped that years into my work because I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not trying to get people to like me. I need to tell them harsh, real truths that they're going to act upon, that they're going to eventually hear, it's eventually going to stick, and then they're actually going to take action on it. So people love the old stuff. They hate the new stuff. You want to know why? Because the new stuff is telling them they must truly change from an internal perspective. And God forbid we can't have that. So most people absolutely hate, detest, and despise my latest work, which is my most powerful work and my most important work, quite frankly. Not because it isn't true or important or quality work, because it is all of those things, but because it intensely emphasizes one's own personal responsibility to change their own thoughts and behavior, and highly emphasizes an individual's responsibility to quote-unquote put skin in the game and get personally involved in the war for our very freedom. It places the burden, the onus, it places all the responsibility upon the individual, upon the self. And that's where most people say, this guy's crazy. I'm checking out. How many people on social media go, I haven't heard a word PASSIO said since like the Demystifying the Occult seminar or since the Natural Law seminar, and then I'm done with the rest of his work. Well, you know what? That's called a dunce. That's called a moron. That's called someone who's not ready to show up and be present and be in learning mode and truly listen. They think they know enough. And you know the answer is they don't know enough. They haven't engaged in the trivium. Everybody thinks they're correct. And the difference is I've actually done the work to make sure that I'm correct. There's a method of that we're going to talk about. You can make sure whether you're correct or not if you gather enough data, which most people haven't. That's why most people talk out of their ass. They don't know what they're talking about because they haven't gathered enough grammar. They haven't gathered the data that's required. They don't have the requirements in knowledge. And I do. That's what qualifies me to deliver a seminar like this, quite frankly. That I am qualified in knowledge regarding this material. And again, this is still just introductory and caveats. And it has to be said, and it has to be said intensely like this. If you don't like it, I don't care. Because this is part of the problem with reception of my work. And people have to work on their own reception, the quality of their reception. There's no problem with the transmitter, folks. There's problems with the radio receiving the transmission. Put that concept in your mind, in your mental pipe, and smoke it. Okay? You got to attenuate and attune the receiver in order to receive the message coming from the big megawatt transmitter, 1,000 megawatt. Okay? So if people say they don't like the new PASSIO, you know that they're a dunce and that they don't know what they're talking about. They don't even know what the new material is, what it represents, how important and powerful it is, because they want soft nonsense. They're not really in the game for freedom. They have no skin in the game. And most of all, they want to stay rigidly attached to their own ego bullshit. And they don't want to really change from an internal perspective. So approach this material like an adult or go away, quite frankly. And again, I'm saying this up front. These are my caveats. These are my warnings. So I'm telling people right up front, this may not be for you. This may not be for you. And you need to know that going in. And then maybe you'll come back to it when you're ready. This presentation, this seminar today, is for psychologically mature adults who are ready and able to hear the truth regarding how they must change in order for the human condition to change and improve for the better. The human condition changes by individuals changing themselves, and most people aren't ready for that work. That's sad, but that's true. So this seminar is not for those who appear to be adults in a bodily capacity, physically appear to be adults, but really they're not adults up here. They still have the psychological mentation of a little child putting their hands over their ears and saying, I don't want to hear this. And that's not a good person. That's someone who thinks that they're going to think and reason with their emotions instead of actually think and reason with their brain and mind. So if this image describes who you are internally from your internal emotional state, time to go. And you'll hear no other presenter say things like that to their potential viewing audience anywhere. And that's because they're just trying to reel people in for clicks and likes and popularity and better ratings. And I could give a shit, couldn't give any less of a shit about any of those things, quite frankly. I'm here to present harsh truth and to help improve the human condition for the better, not placate someone's delicate bullshit ego. Okay? So that's the difference between a real OG and a real person delivering material like this, who's coming at it from a very boots on the ground perspective, and somebody who's just would do anything for clicks and likes and attention. One of the greatest sayings ever, if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. But if you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. This is one of my personal approaches to life in general. And truer words may have never been spoken. If you are here and you've showed up determined to learn this material, you are unstoppable. But if you're not really willing to hear what's going to be said today, there is no help for you, certainly not from me. Your discomfort does not determine what is true. My presentation style is often extremely intense and at times even combative, and you've already heard some of that. I will not sugarcoat my words or my delivery. Some people who watch this seminar may very likely become upset or angered by things I will say during this presentation. So be it. Let those emotions flow through you. That's not my problem or responsibility, it's yours. But however this presentation, with me saying the words that I'm going to say, makes you feel, that will never make this material untrue. That will never make this material untrue. Beat that concept into your brain. What I'm going to present here is true regardless of how you feel about it. Truth, by its very nature, is belligerent because it wages war against all forms of deception and mind control. That is what telling the truth is actually doing. It's putting that information into the field of consciousness that we live within. It's a broadcast signal out into the matrix of consciousness. And when it is received properly by those other antenna picking it up, those other radios receiving that signal and possibly even rebroadcasting it for other people to hear, there's no stopping it. It becomes incredibly powerful. Telling the truth and making someone cry is better than telling a lie and making someone smile. 100%. And that's what I endeavor to do. The truth is harsh. It's ugly. It does not necessarily make us feel good. You can't reason with your emotions. You must reason with your mind. So get as offended as you want. Get as offended as you like. It's never going to make what I say today untrue. All it's going to do is keep you from receiving the information properly and helping yourself and helping the world. So only you have the power to make that eventuality not happen and make a good outcome happen, that you are going to receive it properly, you're going to get maximum benefit from this seminar, and you're going to change yourself for the better and change the world for the better. You're the only one that can make that happen. This seminar is a large tapestry of information, and it constitutes an informational tapestry that is meant to be taken in as a whole, not in little isolated sections or parts. Now, a lot of people want to break my work into more digestible chunks. I'm not saying I am opposed to that. But when it comes to a seminar like this, you really need to understand the entirety of the information, seeing it in context. If you try to do it out of that entirety and out of context, it's going to be very difficult to gain maximum benefit. So I highly recommend that you stay and watch the entire presentation in all of its parts. If you don't do that, you will most likely not recognize the patterns inherent to the information tapestry. And more likely than not, you will not come away from this seminar with an accurate understanding of these topics, and you will not receive maximum value for the resources that you, basically used and gave to be here. And I don't want to see that. I want to see everybody gain maximum value. I've said in the test calls that we did for this seminar, and I'll say it again right here. There are going to be people in this seminar that go, after hearing the entirety of it, if they stay for the whole thing and listen to the whole thing, oh my God, I can't believe I paid $70 to attend this seminar. It wasn't worth 70 cents. There are going to be many people. I know this. I hope it's not true. I hope I'm wrong. But more likely than not, there are going to be some people that are going to be like, this wasn't worth what I donated to be here. Then there are going to be other people. They're going to be like, I think $70 was reasonable. I think that's probably about what the whole thing was worth. And they stayed and they got a couple of things and they didn't really apply it later, or maybe some of them applied a little bit. And there's going to be people who say, yeah, it was worth the $70 that I donated to be there. And then there's going to be a small group of people, much smaller than the other two groups, They're going to say, "Oh my God. That seminar changed my entire life and my entire way of thinking about reality." And $70 was the most ridiculously lowball donation that could have ever been asked. That seminar was worth $70,000. It was worth $70 million. That's going to be the tiny minority. And once again, that's going to be up to what the student brings to the table and how much they focus and pay attention and really hear the concepts that are presented. This seminar is essentially an addendum to What on Earth is Happening, my main website and body of material. If you're here and you're not familiar with What on Earth is Happening, I don't know why you are here. That is ultra confusing to me, and I would not say that you're really going to, it's not best practices, let's put it that way, okay? I'm not saying you might not understand what I present, but this works best if you view it and take it in and receive it in conjunction with the prerequisite material that is in my body of work on whatonearthishappening.com. So this seminar should be absorbed by the potential student in conjunction with the information covered on my website, whatonearthishappening.com. Specifically the podcast section, obviously the video section, which has all of my formalized presentations, and my news section, which has all of my interviews that I've done on other people's platforms. While this seminar could stand on its own, certainly it could, a more complete and healed worldview will emerge in the mind of the student if the information I explore regarding shadow work is understood in relation to the information that I cover in all of my previous work. And once again, this is about old PASSIO versus new PASSIO. Old PASSIO is talking about the external factors we need to make ourselves aware of in our world. The new material is talking about shadow work and how we really need to conduct this type of spiritual work so that we can change ourselves to make the world a better place to live in. Again, that's the challenge, and that's why most people will stop halfway and say, I like the stuff about the external factors, but keep the stuff trying to tell me how to change away. That they turn around, they run a million miles in the opposite direction. Because that's one of the most difficult things to do, is confront yourself and change yourself. Dedication, dedicated time, and undivided attention is required. That's what's required for a seminar like this. You don't want to be distracted. You don't want to split your time. Devote the time. Pay full undivided attention. Show up in learning mode, in full learning mode. This seminar requires what I call the two spiritual currencies, time and attention, because we spend our time and we pay attention. That's why they are currencies, similar to a form of money, but it's a spiritual form of the one I, mon I. Okay? That's what money actually means. The fiat form of it, that's government issues, is the proxy for the true spiritual form of it, time and attention. So this seminar should not be taken as a form of entertainment, because this isn't entertainment. This is true life and death information and aspects of our very being. That should not be taken lightly, and that should not be seen as, let me just see what this guy's going to say. It shouldn't be an intellectual curiosity either, okay? The students of this seminar should be interested in true self-improvement in a very serious capacity, and should therefore approach these subjects in a dedicated and focused manner. You need focus, you need motivation, you need dedication, all turned on to the maximum, and shut the excuses off. Toggle that one off. No excuses. when it comes to shadow work or showing up and paying attention. No excuses should be made. If you find it difficult to hone in and focus in and pay attention and stay motivated, that's not on me, that's on you. Okay? And this is why we don't make a lot of progress in the freedom movement and why the elite psychopaths do make progress in their dark work to enslave and manipulate. Because they show up, they're focused, they're dedicated, their attention is always on, they don't make excuses, they get it done. And the people in the freedom movement are wishy-washy. They're not spiritual warriors, they're wishy-washy people. They want comfort, they don't want to really make any sacrifices. They don't want to put skin in the game. They're not motivated. They're not dedicated. They're very, very wishy-washy. I'm talking about a lot of people in the seminar, live. You know, there's some people I wouldn't want to personally hang out with. And I certainly wouldn't want you ever have in my six. Never happen. There are people that are so wishy-washy in this movement that if any kind of actual serious combat or conflict broke out, they'd get you dead in 30 seconds. You wouldn't be dead in 60 seconds, you'd be dead in less than 30. That's how wishy-washy and weak and not driven and unfocused and undedicated people are. And that's sad, and that's what I'm trying to change. That's pathetic. And that's what I'm trying to change. I'm trying to make them into focused, motivated, dedicated people. Help them to become that. Only they can do that for themselves. Only they could put that work in. I could just show the way. The other the other thing that people always say when it comes to these big full-length seminars is, he didn't cover this or that. I would have talked about this. Well, guess what? Go make your own fucking presentation then. Go host your own seminar. Show me how it's done. Show everybody how it's done. Right? But they're the kind of people that'll complain that, oh, this was left out. This detail was left out. That detail was left out. There's going to be a ton left out. There's going to be a ton not talked about. Get over it. Nobody's going to talk about every single pertinent topic of a body of knowledge this gigantic. It's impossible. 10 hours, 12 hours, I couldn't do it in 12 years. This is a lifelong study that I'm condensing down into one day. It's compression. Believe me, it's the zip file that's been so compressed it's ready to pop. Okay? That's what you have to understand about this. One day could not possibly cover the entirety of the scope of these types of topics, nor could a week, a month, or even a year, or like I said, 12 years. Such topics require ongoing, eclectic research. That means incredibly diverse, from all kinds of fields of interest and backgrounds and topics and authors, etc. Eclectic research and investigation. And it could potentially constitute a lifetime of study and practice. This seminar is not intended to be the be-all and end-all on this topic. It is intended to merely whet the appetite of the potential students of this information so that they can pursue their own autodidactic investigations. And that's that term we're going to talk about later. Autodidactism means self-directed learning. It means that you go off in pursuit of more knowledge on your own without any prompting from any kind of a teacher or guru or whatever. Okay? You're going to do your own research into these topics so that you learn more and more and become much more informed on them and then practice them better and at a higher level. So this is an ongoing life journey that it constitutes a tiny drop in an ocean of information, and obviously it couldn't all be discussed in the course of one day. That should be painfully obvious. So all the people that go, oh, he left this out. Yeah, a lot's going to be left out. And a lot's going to be covered. Okay? So this argument that because somebody didn't cover every topic regarding this material that you wanted covered, that somehow it's inadequate. Not true. I, as the teacher of this information and as the person who creates the seminar, I'm going to determine what I think is the most important topics, and those are the ones I'm going to cover. If you think it should be done better, by all means, go make your own presentation on the topic. So those are my caveats and warnings. Let's jump into part one. There will be 3 parts in this seminar. Part one is called Concepts and Preparation, which will be prerequisite understanding and introductory material before getting into methods. Part 2 will be methods, and part 3 will be integration and progress. Okay, so let's jump in with part 1, concepts and preparation for shadow work.